Kramji, if we remove two factors from good attributes of a project that has potential to en bloc. So, for example, let us remove the human factor. I mean, like in the market, there's this term that in certain projects, there might be a group of owners that are not receptive to the concept of en bloc because of replacement home and all that kind of stuff. So maybe we remove the human factor from the attributes list. And then the second factor to remove is, maybe let's remove, although it's very hard to remove, but let us remove the part whereby the owners collectively want to achieve a certain reserve price. So let's remove that as well. So barring that two attributes being removed, what are the rest of the attributes that usually attracts developers to want to bid for a certain type of project? Like, is it like huge car park lot spaces that are not, utilized and plot ratios and things like that? What are some of these things that maybe you can share with our audience?
Well, actually, what is currently on site doesn't quite matter to a developer because they will raise it down, they will tear it down and build afresh. Whether it's got existing surface car park, I mean, it's not relevant to whether they wish to bid for it or not. What could go wrong when they assess a piece of land is if the component of development charges, which is a tax payable upon redeveloping or applying to redevelop it, is high in proportion to the entire land cost, then they can potentially be exposed to needing to pay higher rates if from the point of purchase to the time that they make the application, there is at least 1 or 2 DC rate increments along the way, because DC rates are adjusted every 6 months. So some developers have been exposed to a situation where in their minds they thought that they would be paying, say, $200 million in DC, or now it's known as land betterment charge. But the end result, having gone through the entire process, that 200 million may balloon to, say, 300 million because of a variety of factors. So they would need to assess whether are the risk factors in that particular en bloc high. There are en blocs where actually the DC amount is small in proportion to the entire land value. So it would basically point that the risk factors in those situations are much more manageable. So that's one. Then obviously they will have to look at marketability of that project in the context of the target audience, who's going to likely buy. Are there BTOs with MOPs that will be just nice for them to be targeted to? Good schools, MRT station, shopping malls, distance, commute times to CBD, all these factors, views. So once they've taken a complete assessment of that, that's when they can also internalize a view that they're taking off the market, because when they buy a piece of land, they can only launch it potentially 15 months or sometimes 18 months after purchase. So they will have to kind of keep an eye as to where they think the market would be 1.5 to 2 years to 3 years from that point of time. If they're obviously bearish about the market, then no developer is going to buy. If they think it's going to be stagnant, then they will not be very too aggressive about bidding. And if they are reasonably confident and prepared to take the risk that there's probably upside about it, that's when they know that they will have to be competitive against other potential bidders.
So when we talk about competitions as such, especially when, let's say, they have en bloc this particular project, and then surrounding there is a series of government land sale that has yet to be launched. How would this potentially affect, the outlook of this particular project that is about to go for en bloc?
Very good question. So it's all about, again, a marketability assessment. So what's the oversupply situation, undersupply situation? When was the last project in that localized area launch? Was it reasonably successful? What's going to compete at around the same time? So these are all factors that will have to be taken into consideration in actually making a decision. And that's not to say that since there is another competing project that might be heading towards the same time launch, that a developer should not partake, because sometimes GLS also does spring those kind of situations where you can have two sites in the same area that's launch and close at the same time. So the Lentor area is one good example. And so developers will just have to price that situation and making an assessment about it. And if it needs to be a bit more cautious and price that in, then so be it.